sees Maddy's tent zipped up and cleans up the place. This just sounds too strange to me. Given the evidence at the scene, there were no signs of violence in or around Maddy's tent. No serious signs of a struggle either. Her truck was left untouched and locked, and none of her belongings were missing. No blood, aside from Jordy's grody sleeping bag. No torn camping gear. Nothing to suggest a possible wild animal attack either, or that Maddy was involved in some sort of altercation. There was literally nothing alarming there that would even set off, red flags for people that were there the next morning or Saturday night for that party. This tells me Maddy seemingly up and left that site willingly. Think about it. It is, 2, 3 a.m. Party's over. Your friend you were planning to kick it with has bailed on you and you're now alone. You're tired and you don't want to pack all your shit and leave, but you also don't want to stay here alone. The birthday boy, who you probably know to some extent, is offering you a ride home, and at this point, you take it. You know him. You trust him. You figure, let me just lock my truck up, take my phone, and I'll be back in the morning. And you leave. It makes sense. Now, from Garrett's perspective, I don't know the guy. He could be the most stand-up, honest, loyal, gentlemanly guy on this planet, and I could be way off with this speculation, but for argument's sake, let's just say that's not the case. So you're Garrett. It's your birthday. You're turning 25, and you're planning to have this rager out at Hogsback. People show up, you're having a blast, drinking, partying, yada, yada, yada. You and your girl get into a fight. She's fucking up your vibe, you're upset, she's upset, she leaves. Now you're in a bad mood, you're pissed, you're drunk, you need to let off steam. You see a pretty girl camping all alone and at this site. You offer her a ride. Again, I could be way off, but am I? These things do happen. I'm wondering though, why pack all this camping gear for a party in the woods if you're not staying? It sounds like camping was everyone's way of avoiding drinking and driving, which, yay, applause. I'm so proud of that initiative that you have taken. And according to Garrett, that's what he did every year. So you're telling me a fight with your girlfriend made you drop your tradition of several years and just pack up all your shit and just throw out, any caution you had and run the risk of driving you and other people home intoxicated. I don't know if I buy the girlfriend fight as a reason he chose to leave. Obviously, it's a good reason, and plenty of people would leave, but I don't know if I buy it for him. It's completely plausible, but it's also doubtful. He's one of the last people to see Maddy alive. If he didn't have involvement, he had to have seen something. I don't see how he couldn't have. I wish there was more info on the remaining people that were there and when they supposedly left, if they were even there. Something tells me there wasn't people there. Again, this is all speculation solely based on the info that I was able to find. Doesn't mean that there isn't answers to these questions already. It just means I wasn't able to find them, or that maybe they just haven't been released. Anyways, so with partygoers essentially crossed off the list as suspects, or at least of involvement, people have to cast out a bigger net now and see what they can drag in. They start going through other options. Would Maddy want to disappear? Is this something of her own accord? Did maybe she have some sort of accident nearby and they just haven't located her yet? Was this some random passerby? Or is there something in Maddy's personal life that could give some sort of direction to where she's at? People don't just disappear off the planet. So police start combing through Maddy's family life and social life. Maddy was obviously happy and got along with her family and had loving, caring friends with some questionable choices in there. However, they did find a few dark spots in her social circle. When Jordy was approached by 48 Hours for an interview, she made a statement about Maddy being involved with a guy by the name of, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Fribjon Bjornsson. I will call him Bjornsson. She essentially said that they had some sort of a relationship, whether it was dating or friends or what, I'm not sure. But because of these statements, it led to speculation of his involvement in her disappearance. Jordy made claims that he was, quote, bad news, which to me is some shady shit to go on a national televised interview and hint at someone being involved without having any evidence, especially if you yourself have been highly scrutinized for your involvement in that same case. In any event, police were also aware of the connection between Maddy and Bjornsson. Bjornsson and Maddy both played on the same softball team for a while, but that seemed to be the only real connection anyone could find. I'm not sure what evidence Jordy felt she had to go on TV and state that they were an item, but both police and families of both parties felt that there was no connection regarding Maddy's disappearance. However, what makes Bjornsson's connection to this case more intriguing is what happened to him after Maddy's disappearance. So, January 10th-ish, 2012, 8 months after Maddy's disappearance, 28-year-old father of two, Bjornsson, cashed his check of roughly $2,500. He pocketed the cash, and he headed over to his mother's house in Vanderhoof. He returned to his work just north of Fort St. James the next day. Later that night, Bjornsson's boss assigned him a couple of tasks to complete by the next day. When his boss returned the next afternoon, he noticed that none of the assigned tasks to Bjornsson had been touched. When an investigation was opened into locating Bjornsson, police found video footage from a 7-Eleven in Vanderhoof dated January 12th, around 1 a.m. That was the last time Bjornsson was seen alive. The investigation continued on in search of him. On January 23rd, police located the vehicle Bjornsson was the last known to be driving, which happened to be his boss's vehicle, abandoned in front of the Sunset Court Apartments on the, I'm going to butcher this, I'm so sorry, Azdal Reserve. On February 1st, Bjornsson's severed head was found wrapped in a comforter inside the basement of a house located on Lower Road on that same reservation. Testing revealed that Bjornsson's head was removed by 2 different weapons. Wrapped in the comforter was a piece of beige plastic cable insulation. Matching cable insulation was found in the basement of a nearby house on Lower Road, hanging from the rafters. There, they also found Bjornsson's blood all over the floors, walls, clothing that was in the house, and on the outside stairs. The investigation eventually concluded that the night that Bjornsson was last seen on surveillance, he headed to the home of Robert Antoine, the house with the bloody basement, to purchase drugs. Bjornsson had a history with drugs, and despite his attempts to get clean, he was on the downswing at the time of his death. Here at the house, he was ambushed by a minimum of 3 men, with others potentially being involved and not stopping. He was tortured and beaten before being strangled to death and dismembered. Aside from his head, he has not been recovered. His alleged killers were put on trial in 2016, I believe, and were found guilty originally. However, in recent years, the verdict has been overturned due to wording on the presiding judge's end that was found to be wrong or misleading in some way. A new trial is expected, however, no date has been set. Now, considering the disappearance and brutal murder of Bjornsson, who was someone speculated to be a part of Maddy's social circle at the time of her disappearance, many people felt that there was a connection between her disappearance and his death. An article by a substation of CBS News known as KCFJ 570 AM stated that people in town heard rumors of Bjornsson saying he claimed to know what had happened to Maddy. Others claimed that drug dealers abducted Maddy as leverage against Bjornsson for money that they were owed by him. Police caught wind of these rumors, obviously, and of course investigated them. They brought Bjornsson in for questioning, and he volunteered for a polygraph and wanted to clear his name. Based largely on those results, they cleared him, but 2 days later is when he went missing. Both family and police feel satisfied with the notion that he played no role in her disappearance. This did, however, turn police to the direction of investigating similar crimes in the area, which led them to the potential connection to the Highway of Tears. Now, I am including this because it does have relevance to the ongoing investigation police are conducting, and it is an angle that has to be considered if you're covering all your bases. I do know that Maddy's parents stand firmly against the idea that their daughter's case is related in any way to the Highway of Tears. However, there is no reasoning behind why this is their stance. It's just something that is known. But out of respect for both sides of this investigation, I felt I needed to put that disclaimer in there. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the Highway of Tears, it is a 450-mile stretch along Highway 16 between Prince George and Prince Rupert in BC, Canada. It is the location of dozens of missing and or murdered women stemming back to 1970. Many of the victims being Indigenous women. It is unknown exactly how many women have fallen victim to the Highway of Tears, but the RCMP Project E-PANA list, the number hovers around 18. Now, Hogsback Lake is about 8 miles south of Highway 16. Given the close proximity, it would be difficult to not consider the possible connection to the Highway of Tears. To me, it is not completely off the table that a passerby completely unknown to the investigation had a role in Maddy's disappearance. You simply can't rule it out of any situation. However, it is extremely unlikely. Again, going back to the state of the campsite, there would be more signs of a struggle had Maddy been forced off the premise by a stranger. It is also unlikely that she would have been able to take her phone and keys with her if she had been abducted. This theory simply doesn't fit with the evidence that was found. This is also largely why police also doubt it was an outside stranger theory. Known serial killer Israel Keys, who was residing in Anchorage, Alaska at the time of Maddy's disappearance, has also been considered at one point to be a suspect. However, many holes have been poked into this theory as well. For me, Anchorage is a 300-mile drive away in a different country for that matter. There would have been more of a trail found of his travels, in my opinion, that would further feed the idea of his involvement. Keys' MO also included burglarizing his victims. None of anything of value was taken from Maddy's campsite the night she went missing. Her purse, riding gear, camping gear, a camera, liquor, and more was all left behind at the scene. Now, while Keys has been known to be an opportunistic killer, and while that does leave the door open as a possibility, police have never found any connection or any thread that could tie this whole theory together and allow it to gain traction. Being that this is still a current and ongoing investigation, not a whole lot of information has been further released by the investigators. Maddy's family has hired countless private investigators and have conducted their own parallel investigation, setting up base in their own home with pin boards, notes, theories, and strategies of their own. They themselves struggle with the lack of progress and info that they have received on their daughter's case, and they want answers, as any parent of a missing child wants and deserves. They hang on to the hope that she is still out there and will one day come home. Dawn has been the driving force behind the momentum that Maddy's case continues to generate. Me personally, I believe everything that is needed to solve this case has already been found. I feel that it has been severely overlooked. Severely. There is a wolf in sheep's clothing. I feel it in my gut. There are a couple of people of interest for me. Garrett, Jordy, an unnamed man, caller. I'll start with Jordy. Do I believe that Jordy had some sort of master plan that night to abduct or harm Maddy in any way? Of course not. With the evidence that is given and the info that has been released, it just doesn't seem plausible. However, that doesn't leave her completely clear of this in any way either. Watch the documentary I mentioned previously. Watch her interview with 48 Hours. Read articles and listen to what her story is. Something is not right there. Something is off. Almost everyone who has viewed it, both professional and average Joe alike, has come to the same conclusion. Where the wheels start to fall off of this for me is her explanation of the events that happened that night. She made plans to spend the night with Maddy at the camp because of the partying they planned on doing. Partying happens and Jordy decides to leave. Doesn't even give a kosher explanation as to why. In all the articles and videos I watched, she fumbles over her reasoning why. She was too drunk. She was injured. She didn't really say why. All of the accounts, though,